The world outside my bedroom window was a muted gray. The kind of lazy Saturday afternoon that promises nothing and delivers exactly that. I was hunched over my desk, the glow of the monitor painting my face in the frantic blues and oranges of a firefight. The staccato rhythm of virtual gunfire was a familiar comfort, a predictable chaos I could control. My character, a hulking space marine named Wreckage, was my avatar of choice, all muscle, armor, and uncomplicated aggression. He was everything I was supposed to want to be. The door to my room burst open without a knock. A violation of the sacred teenage pact of privacy. I didn't even need to look. Only one person on Earth moved with that much unapologetic energy. Jake, oh my God, you have to see this. Emily, my younger sister, a whirlwind of boundless enthusiasm and social media trends, stood in the doorway, her phone held up like a holy relic. Her eyes, wide and bright, were practically vibrating. I didn't pause the game. I'm busy, Em. The fate of the galaxy is at stake. The galaxy can wait. This is important, she insisted. Striding into my sanctuary of muted colors and scattered clothes, she shoved the phone in my face. On the screen, a guy was standing awkwardly in his bedroom. The music kicked in, he spun around, and a quick video cut showed him transformed into a surprisingly convincing girl, all flowing hair and a sparkling dress, blowing a kiss to the camera. The caption read, "Boy to Girl Transformation Challenge." I snorted, turning my attention back to the game. That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen, and I've seen you try to teach Grandma how to floss. It's not dumb, it's viral, she said, snatching the phone back. Everyone is doing it, it's hilarious, and I had the most brilliant idea. I had a sinking feeling I knew where this was going. A cold dread, slow and heavy, began to pool in my stomach. No. You didn't even hear it yet. I don't need to. The answer is no. Em, get out. I'm in the middle of a raid. She ignored me completely, her gaze scanning my room before she darted toward my closet. I half expected her to pull out one of my hoodies and draw a smiley face on it. What she did was far worse. She didn't open my closet. She opened the one next to it. The hall closet where she sometimes stored overflow from her own fashion disaster of a room. A moment later, she turned around, and draped over her arm was a slip of fabric that seemed to suck all the masculinity out of the air. It was a slip dress, the color of lavender in the twilight. It was made of silk, or something that looked like it, shimmering under the dim light of my desk lamp. It was delicate, fragile, and utterly, terrifyingly feminine. There's no way in hell I'm wearing that thing. Emily. The words exploded out of me, louder than I intended. My character on screen was promptly annihilated by a plasma grenade. I barely noticed. Oh, come on, she wheedled, stepping closer and holding the dress up against my chest. The fabric was cool, and I flinched away as if it had burned me. It would be perfect. Just for a second. You spin, I cut the video, and then you're a girl. It's a joke. As if to prove her point, she produced a cascade of other items from a tote bag I hadn't noticed her carrying. A pair of sheer stockings, a cheap-looking blonde wig that seemed to glow with its own synthetic life, a small makeup bag that probably contained more powders and paints than a hardware store. I stared at the collection of female artifacts spread out on my unmade bed. They looked alien, like props from a movie about a planet I never wanted to visit. My room, with its sports posters and video game consoles, felt like it was being invaded. My own identity felt like it was under siege. No way, I repeated, my voice tight. That's ridiculous. People from school could see it. My friends, they'd kill me. The thought of my buddies, Mark and Chris, seeing me in that thing, sent a wave of hot shame through my entire body. I could already hear their laughter, the endless jokes that would follow me for the rest of high school. Emily rolled her eyes, her patience clearly wearing thin. Don't be so dramatic, it's TikTok. Not a national news broadcast. 30 seconds of your life. Jake. And maybe you'll go viral. You might even thank me later. Thank you for what public humiliation. She held up the lavender dress again. Letting it sway gently, the soft material caught the light. And for a split second, I wasn't thinking about the shame. I was just looking at the color, the way it flowed. It was pretty. The thought ambushed me, and I shoved it away, horrified. Come on, Jake, she pressed, her voice softening into the persuasive tone she used when she really wanted something. Think of it as acting. You're playing a character. A really, really pretty girl, she grinned, a mischievous glint in her eye. It'll be our little secret. I won't even tag you. Please. I looked from her earnest, pleading face to the dress, then to the ridiculous blonde wig. My mind was screaming 1,000 different versions of no, but a tiny traitorous part of me was curious. What would it be like just for a second? Just for a laugh? It was a stupid, dangerous thought. A flicker of intrigue in a storm of panicked resistance. Emily saw the hesitation in my eyes. She was like a shark that smelled blood in the water. I'll do your chores for a month, she offered. The final, desperate gambit. I should have said no. I should have kicked her out and locked the door. I should have gone back to my game and forgotten this conversation ever happened. But I stood there, frozen, caught between the crushing weight of what was expected of me and the feather-light touch of a forbidden, terrifying possibility. My surrender wasn't a conscious decision. It was more like a slow erosion of my will. Emily's relentless pleading, combined with that flicker of morbid curiosity, wore me down until the word no just felt exhausting to repeat. With a heavy sigh that felt like it was coming from the very depths of my soul, I finally grunted. Fine, one take, that's it, and you owe me big time. Her face lit up like a Christmas tree. Yes, you won't regret this. I already do, I thought, as she shoved the lavender slip dress into my hands. The shock of it was immediate. My hands, calloused from lifting weights and gripping game controllers, were completely unprepared for the sensation. The material was impossibly soft, smoother than anything I'd ever touched. It was cool and weightless, pooling in my palms like liquid moonlight. I was used to the rough texture of denim, the comfortable cotton of my t-shirts. This was different. This was alien. Well, go on, Emily urged, gesturing for me to change. I'll turn around. With a sense of profound dread, I peeled off my worn-out band t-shirt and baggy sweatpants. The air in the room felt cold on my bare skin. I stood there in my boxers, holding the flimsy dress, feeling more exposed than I ever had before. I fumbled with it, trying to figure out which end was up. The delicate spaghetti straps felt like spider webs between my clumsy fingers. I pulled it over my head. The sensation of the silk cascading down my body was electric. It didn't just touch my skin, it seemed to whisper against it. A cool, fluid caress that followed every contour of my torso, my waist, my hips. It was a feeling so foreign that it made my heart hammer against my ribs. The dress settled around me, clinging in ways my own clothes never did. It hugged my chest and waist, then fell loosely over my legs. The hem ending disconcertingly high up my thigh. My broad shoulders and the muscles in my arms felt constricted and out of place, straining against the delicate cut of the fabric. I felt like a monster trying to disguise itself in a fairy's clothes. Okay, you can look now, I mumbled, my face burning with a heat that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. Emily spun around, and her professional, directorial demeanor immediately kicked in. Oh, the straps are all twisted. Here, let me. She stepped forward, and her fingers, deft and sure, went to work on the thin straps on my shoulders. Her touch was light and impersonal, but the proximity, the intimacy of the act. My sister adjusting a slip dress on my bare shoulders sent a fresh wave of awkwardness through me. I stood rigid, staring at a poster on my wall, pretending this was completely normal. There, she said, stepping back to admire her work. Perfect. Now, sit down. Makeup time. She guided me to the chair at my desk, turning it to face her. I sat, my movements stiff. The feeling of the silk against the backs of my legs was a constant, distracting hum of sensation. I watched in the reflection of my dark monitor as she opened her makeup bag, the various compacts and brushes laid out like surgical tools. Close your eyes, she commanded. I obeyed, plunging myself into a world of pure sensation. A cool, damp sponge began dabbing at my face, spreading a layer of liquid foundation that smelled faintly of flowers. It felt strange, like putting on a mask. She worked quickly, blending it down my neck, erasing the faint shadow of stubble on my jaw. Then came the soft tickle of a fluffy brush dusting powder over my cheeks. Setting the base, it felt like a ghost's touch. Okay, open. I looked at my reflection again. My skin was unnaturally smooth, a flawless, even canvas. The faint scars and imperfections were gone. It was my face, but a softer, idealized version of it. Next was the blush, She swirled a brush and a pink palette and swept it across my cheekbones. Then came the eyes. The gentle pressure of an eyeliner pencil tracing my lash line was unnerving. I flinched when she came at me with the eyelash curler, a terrifying metal contraption that looked like a tiny medieval torture device. But she was patient, and with a gentle squeeze, my lashes were suddenly curled upwards, making my eyes seem wider, more open. A few coats of mascara, and they were darker, longer, framing my eyes in a way that made them look different, more expressive. The final touch was the lips. She uncapped a tube of gloss and painted a layer of shimmering, sticky color onto my mouth. The sweet, fruity smell filled my nostrils. When she was done, she picked up the blonde wig. It was surprisingly heavy. She gathered my own short brown hair back and settled the wig onto my head, adjusting it so the synthetic golden strands fell around my face and cascaded over my shoulders. The feeling of the hair tickling my neck and collarbones was utterly bizarre. She spun the chair around to face the full-length mirror leaning against my wall. "Okay," she whispered, a dramatic flair in her voice. "Prepare yourself." I took a breath and looked. For a full 10 seconds, I didn't recognize the person staring back at me. It wasn't Jake, it was a stranger, a girl with wide, dark eyes, soft pink cheeks, and full, glossy lips. A girl with a cascade of blonde hair, framing a face that was hauntingly familiar but undeniably feminine. The lavender dress clung to a body that I knew was mine, but the shape looked different, softened by the cut of the fabric and the new context of the face above it. My shoulders still looked a bit broad, but the delicate straps of the dress somehow made it work. A hot, confusing mix of emotions churned in my gut. Shame was there, front and center, a burning, bitter pill. This was wrong. This was a perversion of everything I was. But underneath the shame, something else was stirring, a strange, unnerving flicker of fascination. The girl in the mirror was pretty. The word echoed in my mind, the same one I'd recoiled from earlier. But now, seeing the complete picture, I couldn't deny it. "Is that really me?" I whispered, my voice sounding rough and alien coming from those glossed lips. Emily beamed, her reflection appearing over my shoulder. She leaned in close, a triumphant smirk on her face. "See," she teased gently, "you're kinda pretty, bro, or should I say, sis." Her words hit me like a stone, sending ripples through the confusing pool of my emotions. Bro, sis, the two words felt like they were describing two different people. And right now, I was somehow both and neither. I was just the stranger in the mirror, trapped between humiliation and a terrifying, exhilarating curiosity. The transformation was complete, but the performance was yet to come. Emily, now fully in her role as director, clapped her hands together. "Okay, showtime. The lighting here is terrible. Let's go to my room." My feet felt rooted to the floor. The idea of walking, of moving this new body through the house, seemed like an impossible task. "I'm not walking through the hallway like this," I said, my voice a low croak. "What if Mom or Dad sees? They're out grocery shopping, you worrywart. They won't be back for at least an hour. Now come on, we're losing the light." She grabbed my hand, and her touch was the only thing that managed to pull me out of my chair. I stood up, feeling wobbly and unsteady. The short hem of the dress felt scandalous, and I was acutely aware of the air on my legs. I hadn't put on the stockings yet, and Emily seemed to decide they weren't necessary for the first shot. Walking was a revelation. My usual heavy-footed stride was impossible. The dress, the feeling of the wig on my shoulders, the faint scent of makeup, it all conspired to make me move differently. I found myself taking smaller, more conscious steps. The silk of the slip whispered against my thighs with every movement, a constant, intimate reminder of what I was wearing. Emily's room was the polar opposite of mine. It was bright, clean, and meticulously organized. A large ring light was already set up in front of a pastel pink wall. She positioned me in the center of its glow, the bright white light making me feel even more exposed. "Okay, the song is super simple," she explained, tapping on her phone. "You just stand there, look a little bored or whatever, and when the beat drops, you spin, and as you spin, you have to smile, like a real smile, not the creepy grimace you do for school pictures." She played the track. It was a catchy, upbeat pop song, the kind that gets stuck in your head for days. I listened, my heart pounding in time with the synthesized beat. This was it, the point of no return. "Ready?" she asked, propping her phone up on a tripod. I nodded, unable to speak. I felt ridiculous. I was a 17-year-old guy, dressed as a girl in his sister's bedroom, about to perform for a faceless internet audience. This had to be the lowest point of my life. "Okay, I'm recording in 3, 2, 1, action." The music started. I stood there, trying my best to look natural, which was impossible when every nerve ending in my body was screaming in protest. I stared at the phone's camera lens, feeling its unblinking gaze on me. I could feel the wig's synthetic fibers on my neck, the sticky gloss on my lips, the slinky fabric of the dress against my skin. The beat built, a wave of sound and anticipation. "Spin, Emily," Whisper shouted from behind the camera. On instinct, I did as she said. I turned, pushing off the ball of one foot. For a single dizzying moment, the world blurred into a swirl of pink walls and white light. The lavender dress flared out around me, a spinning circle of silk. The long blonde hair of the wig whipped across my face. And in that moment of motion, something shifted inside me. The self-consciousness, the shame, the awkwardness, it all fell away, lost in the simple physics of the spin. As I came to a stop, facing the camera again, a smile broke across my face. It wasn't forced. It wasn't a grimace. It was genuine, a spontaneous reaction to the sheer, dizzying absurdity of it all. It felt like a release, a letting go of the tension that had been coiled inside me for the last hour. The camera caught it all, the swirl of the dress, the toss of the blonde hair, and the bright, unguarded smile of the girl in the lavender slip. "And cut," Emily exclaimed, rushing to her phone. "Oh my God, Jake, that was perfect, like seriously perfect." She played the video back for me. The first part showed the awkward boy me standing there looking lost. Then came the cut she would edit in later, replacing the spin with the after shot. The video ended with the final few seconds of my spin, the image slowing down to capture the moment the dress settled, and I smiled at the camera. I stared at the screen, stunned into silence. The person in the video was not me. I mean, it was my face, my body, but the sum of the parts was a completely different equation. The bright light softened my jawline, the makeup made my eyes pop, and the smile was radiant. The girl on the screen looked happy, confident, and beautiful. It was a fleeting image, just a few seconds of digital footage, but it was powerful. It was a version of me I had never imagined, a possibility I had never conceived of. "That's actually me?" I asked, the words barely a whisper. The question wasn't for Emily, it was for myself. She clapped me on the shoulder, her grin wide and triumphant. "I told you, you nailed it. Look at you, Jake. You could seriously pass." Her words echoed the confusion in my head. Passing. It implied a deception, a disguise, but looking at the girl on the screen, the radiant girl with the blonde hair and the lavender dress, it didn't feel like a lie. For that one brief, spinning moment, it felt more real than anything I had experienced all day. I was no longer just Jake, the awkward teenager in his sister's dress. I was her, the girl in the video, a new, undiscovered version of myself, brought to life by a camera, a pop song, and a swirl of silk. Emily, a master of the TikTok algorithm, wasted no time. She spent the next 10 minutes furiously tapping at her phone, her brow furrowed in concentration. She edited the two clips together, the before shot of me in my normal clothes, and the after shot of me as the smiling blonde with a seamless, almost magical transition right on the beat drop. She added a few sparkling filter effects, typed in a caption with a string of trending hashtags, #transformation, #glowup, #FYP, #challenge, and then, with a final, decisive tap, she unleashed it upon the world. "And," post she announced, flopping back onto her bed with a satisfied sigh, "now we wait." I had changed back into my own clothes at lightning speed, scrubbing the makeup off my face with a ferocity that left my skin red and raw. The lavender dress was now just a pile of shimmering fabric on her floor. I was back to being Jake. Safe in my baggy hoodie and jeans, but the phantom sensations lingered, the weight of the wig, the slide of the silk against my legs, the sticky sweetness of the lip gloss. My own skin felt foreign. "Aren't you going to delete it right away?" I asked. the anxiety already starting to bubble up inside me again. "No way, we have to see what happens," she said, her eyes glued to her phone screen. "Relax, it's just for fun." For the next hour. Fun was the last word I would have used to describe the experience. Every notification, the sound from her phone made me jump. I paced her room like a caged animal, picturing the worst-case scenarios. Mark and Chris finding the video, it getting screenshotted and sent around our school's group chat. My dad seeing it somehow. The shame was a physical thing, a sour taste in the back of my throat. And then, the notifications started coming faster. "Whoa," Emily breathed, sitting up. "We just got 100 likes." A few minutes later, it was 1,000, then 5,000. The numbers on her screen were climbing at a dizzying rate. My stomach twisted itself into a tight, painful knot. This was my nightmare coming true. The video was escaping, spreading out into the world beyond our control. Maybe you should take it down now," I pleaded. "Are you kidding?" "Look at the comments," she said, turning the phone toward me. I hesitantly leaned over, dreading what I would see. I expected ridicule, mockery, people calling me out, but that's not what I saw. The comment section was a flood of positivity, all of it directed at the girl I had been. And wow, gorgeous. "Okay, but that smile at the end so cute. Who is she? She's stunning. And this is the best glow up I've seen all week, goals." And he literally became a different person, and she's perfect. I read them over and over, my mind struggling to process what was happening. They weren't laughing at me. They were praising her. They were calling this girl, this version of me, beautiful, stunning, perfect. A strange, unfamiliar feeling began to bloom in my chest, pushing aside the shame and anxiety. It was a warm, thrilling sensation, like stepping into the sun after being in the cold for too long. It was pride. A dizzying, illicit sense of validation. They were complimenting an illusion, a costume. But the face in the video was still mine. The smile was mine. And they liked it. They liked her. The video broke 100,000 views before dinner. By the time we went to bed, it was approaching 500,000. Emily was ecstatic, basking in the glow of her viral creation. I was a wreck, torn between two powerful, conflicting emotions. On one hand, I was terrified of being discovered. The fear of my friends seeing it was a constant, pulsing threat. But on the other hand, a part of me was secretly, desperately thrilled. Every positive comment was like a little hit of dopamine, a confirmation that the girl in the mirror wasn't just a ridiculous joke. She was someone people found attractive, someone they admired. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bed, staring up at the dark ceiling, my mind replaying the day's events on a loop. The feel of the silk, the face in the mirror, the spin, the smile, the flood of anonymous adoration. I finally got out of bed and crept through the quiet house to Emily's room. I pushed her door open a crack. She was fast asleep, her phone buzzing softly on her nightstand with the endless stream of notifications. And there, draped over the back of her desk chair, was the lavender slip dress. In the dim moonlight filtering through the window, it seemed to have a life of its own, its silky surface glowing faintly. It looked so simple, so harmless, just a piece of clothing, but it felt like so much more. It was a key, a costume, a catalyst. It had unlocked a door to a room inside myself I never knew existed. My heart was beating fast, a frantic rhythm against my ribs. A thought, quiet and dangerous, slithered into my mind. What if I tried it again? The thought was terrifying, this time. There would be no excuse, no TikTok challenge, no sister forcing me. This would be just for me. The idea was shameful, wrong, a betrayal of everything I was supposed to be, but it was also undeniably, powerfully alluring. The conflict was a physical ache inside me. My carefully constructed sense of masculinity felt like it was fracturing, being challenged by a desire I couldn't understand and a longing to, just once more, meet the girl in the mirror. 2 days passed. 2 agonizing days where I tried to force my life back to normal. I hung out with Mark and Chris. We played video games. We talked about sports. We did all the usual guy things. I laughed at their jokes and argued about stats, playing the part of Jake with a desperate intensity. But my performance felt hollow. My mind was somewhere else entirely, trapped in a loop of memory and sensation. I would be in the middle of a conversation and suddenly remember the feeling of the wig's hair on my shoulders, or the smooth, cool glide of the slip dress against my skin. The TikTok video had surpassed 1 million views. Emily was on cloud nine. But for me, it was a constant source of low-grade panic. Miraculously, no one from school seemed to have seen it. Or if they had, they didn't connect the smiling blonde girl to the quiet, lanky guy who sat in the back of their chemistry class. The anonymity was a fragile shield, and I lived in fear of it shattering. But the fear was constantly at war with the memory of the validation. The praise from thousands of strangers had planted a seed in my mind, and it was starting to grow, its roots twisting around my thoughts. The desire to experience that feeling again, not the public validation, but the private thrill of transformation, became a persistent, nagging ache. On Tuesday afternoon, the opportunity I had been secretly dreading and craving finally arrived. My parents were at work, and Emily had a late rehearsal for the school play. The house was empty, the silence was heavy, amplifying the frantic beating of my own heart. I told myself I was just going to do my homework. I sat at my desk, opened my history textbook, and stared at a paragraph about the Industrial Revolution for 10 solid minutes without comprehending a single word. The lavender dress was calling to me from across the hall. It was a siren song, and I was losing the strength to resist. Finally, with a sense of grim inevitability, I pushed my chair back and walked to Emily's room. My steps were quiet, furtive, as if I were a thief in my own home. The dress was still there, draped over to her chair, exactly where I had last seen it. It looked almost innocent in the afternoon light. My hands trembled as I picked it up. The silk felt just as shocking, just as sensuous as the first time. I undressed quickly, my own clothes feeling rough and cumbersome. I pulled the slip over my head, and a shudder ran through me as the familiar, cool fabric settled against my body. This time, there was no hesitation, no awkward fumbling. It felt familiar, almost like coming home. There was no Emily to direct me, no camera to perform for. It was just me and the mirror. I went into the bathroom we shared, the one with the better lighting, and carefully opened her makeup bag. My hands were clumsy at first. I squeezed out too much foundation, applied the eyeliner in a shaky, jagged line. But I was patient. I remembered the steps she had taken, the way she had brushed the powder onto my cheeks, the careful application of the mascara, slowly, painstakingly. A new face began to emerge from under my own. It was a less polished version than Emily's creation, but it was undeniably her, the girl from the video. I put on the wig, adjusting it until it sat just right. Then I did something I hadn't done before. I opened Emily's jewelry box. I found a pair of simple silver hoop earrings and, with fumbling fingers, managed to clip them onto my ears. They felt cool and heavy on my lobes. I found a delicate silver chain and clasped it around my neck. The small pendant rested in the hollow of my throat, a tiny point of cold against my warm skin. I stepped back and looked at my reflection in the large bathroom mirror. The effect was even more profound than the first time. Without the pressure of the challenge, without my sister's teasing gaze, I could simply look. I saw a girl, a pretty blonde girl in a lavender dress, adorned with simple jewelry. I turned my head from side to side, watching the way the light caught the earrings, the way the wig's hair swayed with the movement. I lifted a hand to my face and watched her hand in the mirror do the same. I traced the line of my jaw, now softened by makeup, and felt a dizzying sense of disconnect. This was my body, but it wasn't my identity. Or was it? A slow smile spread across my face. Her face. It wasn't the big, radiant smile from the video. This one was smaller, more private, a secret shared only with the girl in the mirror. It was a smile of pure, unadulterated fascination. In this reflection, I didn't see the awkward, insecure Jake. I saw someone graceful, someone beautiful, and for a fleeting, terrifying moment, I liked her more than I liked myself. The euphoria was quickly followed by a tidal wave of panic. My smile vanished, replaced by a look of horror. What am I doing? The thought screamed through my mind. This is insane. This isn't me. I stared at my reflection, my heart pounding with a new, frantic rhythm. Shame, hot and acidic, flooded my veins. This was sick. This was wrong. I was a freak. I should wash it all off, hide the dress, and forget this ever happened. But I couldn't move. I was paralyzed. Trapped by the reflection in the mirror, I was caught in a brutal tug-of-war. One side of me was disgusted, repulsed by what I was doing, desperate to cling to the safety of my male identity. The other side was captivated, thrilled by the transformation, by the strange sense of confidence that came with it. The shame was real, but so was the pleasure. And the most terrifying part was that I couldn't tell which was stronger. I lost all track of time. Caught in that strange limbo of fascination and self-loathing, I experimented with different poses, different expressions, studying the girl in the mirror as if she were a fascinating work of art that I both admired and feared. I saw how a slight tilt of the head could make my neck look longer, more elegant. I noticed how pursing my lips, now painted in a soft pink gloss I'd found, made my face look softer, more inviting. Each new discovery was a tiny thrill followed by a jolt of shame. I was a scientist discovering a new world, and a heretic who knew he would be burned for his findings. This secret exploration was intoxicating. It was just for me. A world contained within the four walls of the bathroom. I was practicing a small, shy smile in the mirror when I heard the sound of the front door opening and closing downstairs. My blood ran cold. Mom, Dad. My mind raced. They were supposed to be at work for another 2 hours. Then I heard a familiar, cheerful voice call out, "Jake, I'm home. Rehearsal got canceled early." "Emily." Panic seized me in its icy grip. My heart felt like it was going to beat its way out of my chest. I was trapped. I was on the second floor, in the shared bathroom, dressed head to toe as a girl. Her room, where my own clothes were, was across the hall. There was no escape. I heard her footsteps on the stairs. "Jake," she called again, her voice getting closer. My first instinct was to lock the door, but it was already too late. I was frozen in front of the mirror, a deer in the headlights, my eyes wide with terror. The doorknob began to turn. The door swung open, and Emily walked in, mid-sentence. "Hey, have you seen my—" She stopped dead. Her words died in her throat. Her eyes went from my face, to the dress, to the wig, to the earrings, and back to my face. Her jaw went slack. For a long, silent moment. The only sound in the room was the frantic thumping of my own pulse in my ears. We just stared at each other, two statues locked in a tableau of shock and discovery. The shame I had been fighting against erupted like a volcano, consuming me completely. My face felt like it was on fire. I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me whole. I wanted to cease to exist. I can explain," I stammered, my voice cracking. The words sounded pathetic, absurd. What possible explanation could there be? Emily remained silent for a few more seconds, her expression unreadable. I braced myself for the explosion, the laughter, the mockery, the disgust. I expected her to call me a freak, to run out of the room, to tell our parents. My secret world was about to come crashing down in the most humiliating way imaginable. But the explosion never came. Instead, her expression slowly softened. The shock in her eyes was replaced by something else, something I couldn't immediately identify. It looked like understanding. A slow, small smile touched the corners of her lips. It wasn't a mocking smile. It was gentle, knowing. "You don't have to," she said, her voice quiet. "I kinda knew you liked it." The relief that washed over me was so intense. My knees felt weak. I leaned against the bathroom counter for support, my whole body trembling. She didn't hate me. She wasn't disgusted. You knew," I whispered. "I had a feeling," she said, stepping fully into the bathroom and closing the door behind her. She leaned against it, creating a private space for us. "You were asking a lot of questions about the comments on the video, and, well, I saw you looking at the dress when you thought I wasn't paying attention." My face burned with a fresh wave of embarrassment. But it was different now. It was the embarrassment of being seen, of being known, not the terror of being exposed. "I was just curious," I mumbled, unable to meet her gaze, staring instead at my her painted toes, peeking out from under the hem of the dress. "Is that all it is?" she asked gently. I didn't answer. I didn't have an answer. My own feelings were a tangled mess I couldn't begin to unravel. She pushed herself off the door and walked over to me. She looked at my reflection in the mirror, standing beside her own. She critically examined my makeup. a thoughtful frown on her face. "Your eyeliner is a little crooked," she said matter-of-factly, picking up a cotton swab. "Here, let me fix it." She gently tilted my chin up, and with a practiced hand, she neatened the smudged line beside my eye. Her gesture was so simple, so accepting. It almost brought tears to my eyes. She wasn't making a joke. She wasn't treating me like I was strange. She was just helping. When she was done, she stepped back and looked at me, really looked at me, with a warmth and sincerity that stunned me. "Maybe it's not just a challenge, Jake," she said softly. "Maybe this is something you need to figure out about yourself. And if it is," she gave me a small, encouraging smile, "I'll help you." Her words hung in the air between us. It was an offer, an acceptance, a promise. She was giving me permission to explore this strange new territory without judgment. For the first time, I felt a flicker of hope instead of just fear. I was still terrified and confused. A stranger in my own skin, but with Emily's words, I suddenly felt a little less alone on this bizarre, uncharted journey. The secret, now shared between us, transformed. It was no longer a source of shame I had to hide, but a shared project, an adventure we embarked on together. The bathroom and Emily's bedroom became our laboratory, and my transformation became our experiment, with Emily as my guide. The process became less about a frantic, secret imitation and more about a deliberate, curious education. "If you're going to do this, you have to do it right," she declared one afternoon. A few days after her discovery, she had a new look of determination in her eyes, the same one she got when she was directing a school project. Her first lesson was on walking. She produced a pair of her old heels from the back of her closet. They were a modest pair of black pumps with only a 2-inch heel, but to me, they looked like skyscrapers. "You can't clomp around like you're wearing army boots," she instructed. "It's heel to toe, but your weight shifts, it's in your hips." Getting the shoes on was a struggle. My feet, wider and longer than hers, were squeezed into the narrow confines. The pressure on my toes and the arch of my foot was intense. Standing up was a feat of balance that required me to hold onto her desk for support. The world was literally tilted at a new angle. "Now walk," she commanded. My first few steps were a disaster. I lurched forward, my ankles wobbling precariously. It was less of a walk and more of a controlled fall. Emily stifled a laugh. "Okay, Frankenstein, let's try again. Small steps. Think, graceful." For an hour, I stumbled back and forth across her plush carpet. A clumsy giant in black heels, it was frustrating, painful, and humiliating. But Emily was patient, correcting my posture, reminding me to swing my hips, to let my arms move naturally, slowly, agonizingly. Something began to click. I started to find a rhythm, a new center of gravity. The awkward lurching smoothed out into something that, if not graceful, at least resembled a human walk. The feeling of my weight shifting in my hips, the gentle sway it created, the clicking sound the heels made on the hardwood floor in the hallway. It was a new language my body was learning to speak. It felt powerful. It felt feminine. Next came the wardrobe. The lavender slip dress was beautiful, but it was just one item. Emily became my personal stylist, pulling dresses, skirts, and blouses from her closet for me to try. Each one was a new identity. A soft floral sundress made me feel sweet and innocent. A sleek black pencil skirt paired with a silk blouse felt sophisticated and mature. I learned about different fabrics, the way cotton felt comfortable and familiar, while chiffon was light and ethereal, and lace had a delicate, textured scratchiness against the skin. I discovered that I loved the feeling of a full skirt swishing around my legs, the way it moved with a life of its own. I learned that I preferred A-line dresses that cinched at the waist and flared out, creating an hourglass illusion that hid my broader shoulders and narrower hips. It was a kind of magic, using clothes to shape a new silhouette, to create a body that felt more aligned with the person I was starting to see in the mirror. Makeup sessions became more advanced. Emily taught me how to contour, using shadows and highlights to soften my jaw and create the illusion of higher cheekbones. She showed me how to blend eyeshadows, creating smoky, dramatic looks or soft, natural ones. I learned the difference between lipstick and lip stain, between powder and cream blush. I became obsessed with the details, with the transformative power of a perfectly drawn, winged eyeliner. or the way a touch of highlighter on my Cupid's bow could make my lips look fuller. Through all of this, my internal landscape was shifting. The initial feelings of resistance and shame hadn't vanished completely, but they were being crowded out by new emotions. There was a thrill of discovery, a genuine excitement in learning these new skills. There was a growing sense of artistry in creating this female persona. And underneath it all, a fragile, tentative confidence was beginning to take root. One evening, after a particularly successful session where we had perfected a smoky eye and I was walking around her room in heels with a newfound confidence, Emily stopped me. She put her hands on my shoulders and looked me straight in the eye, her expression serious. "You know, it's different now," she said. "What is?" I asked, my voice a little breathless from the effort of balancing. "When you first put on the dress, you looked like a boy in a costume," she said thoughtfully. "But now, you're not just wearing the dress. Jake, you're owning it." Her words hit me with the force of a revelation. She was right, somewhere along the way. It had stopped being a disguise. The clothes, the makeup, the walk, they were no longer just a collection of items I was putting on. They were becoming a part of me. The line between Jake and the girl in the mirror was blurring. She wasn't just a character anymore. She was an extension of myself, a facet of my personality that had been hidden away, and that I was only now, nervously, joyfully, beginning to embrace. The feeling was equal parts terrifying and exhilarating. I was becoming someone new, and I had no idea where this path was leading. My life split into two distinct, parallel streams. By day, I was Jake. I went to school. I slouched in my chair. I wore baggy jeans and nondescript hoodies. I talked to my friends about things that felt increasingly distant and unimportant. Their world of sports, cars, and girls felt like a foreign country, and I was a tourist with a faked passport. Terrified of saying the wrong thing and revealing that my true interests had shifted dramatically. I no longer cared about the football team's chances this season. I was more concerned with whether I could ever learn to walk in 3-inch heels without breaking an ankle. Then, the sun would set, and my other life would begin. In the privacy of my sister's room, with the door locked, I would transform. I would shed Jake like a snake sheds its skin, and I would become her. We hadn't given her a name yet. It felt too real, too permanent. She was just her, the girl in the mirror, the secret I shared with Emily, but she was becoming more real every day. Her personality was beginning to emerge. She was quieter than Jake, more observant. She was more graceful, more deliberate in her movements. She had a soft, shy smile that felt more natural on my face than Jake's sarcastic smirk ever had. Living this double life was a constant, nerve-wracking tightrope walk. The fear of discovery was a perpetual knot in my stomach. Every time my mom knocked on Emily's door to say goodnight, my heart would leap into my throat. I would freeze, mid-motion, holding my breath until she left. We developed a system of signals, a secret language of coughs and knocks to warn of approaching parents. The close calls were terrifying. One evening, I was fully dressed in a cute plaid skirt and a soft white sweater, carefully applying a dark red lipstick. My dad called my name from downstairs. I froze, my hand shaking so badly I smeared a streak of red across my cheek. Emily quickly threw a blanket over me, hiding me in a corner of her room while she went to see what he wanted. I sat there, huddled under the blanket, my heart pounding, feeling the sticky lipstick on my cheek like a brand. He just wanted help with the Wi-Fi router. The crisis was averted, but the adrenaline left me trembling for an hour afterward. But for all the fear, there was an undeniable, addictive thrill. Each time I looked in the mirror and saw her looking back, I felt a sense of rightness, a quiet click of a puzzle piece falling into place. It was a feeling of wholeness I rarely experienced as Jake. I always felt like I was playing a part, conforming to a script that had been written for me. As her, I felt like I was discovering the script for the first time. And it was a story I was actually interested in. My relationship with Emily deepened, evolving from a typical sibling dynamic into a powerful, unbreakable alliance. She was my confidant, my mentor, my protector. She was the only person in the world who knew the real me, or rather, the real me's. We shared secrets and whispers in the dark, our bond forged in the glow of her ring light and the scent of her makeup. She would give me tips on how to modulate my voice, to speak in a slightly higher, softer register. We would watch movies together, and she would point out the subtle ways actresses carried themselves, the way they gestured with their hands or tilted their heads. The conflict inside me raged on. I was living a lie, and the guilt was a heavy weight. I was deceiving my parents, my friends, everyone I knew. Every laugh I shared with Mark felt like a betrayal, because he was laughing with a person who didn't fully exist anymore. But then, I would retreat to my secret world, slip into a soft dress, and see her in the mirror, and the guilt would recede, replaced by a profound sense of peace. My heart would run with a different rhythm, a calmer, steadier beat. This hidden identity was becoming more than just an escape. It was becoming my sanctuary. I was torn between two worlds. Two selves, one was safe, known, and expected. But it felt like a cage, the other was dangerous, secret, and forbidden. But it felt like freedom. The question that haunted my every waking moment was no longer, what am I doing? But a far more terrifying one. Who am I, really? The catalyst for the next seismic shift came, as it had in the beginning, from Emily's phone. She had become something of a minor celebrity on TikTok after the first video's success. Her followers loved her fashion and makeup content, and she often filmed short, candid videos in her room. One Saturday afternoon, we were in the middle of a session. It was raining outside, casting a soft gray light into the room. I was feeling particularly confident that day. I was wearing a navy blue skater dress that flared perfectly when I twirled, paired with white ankle socks and a pair of Emily's old Converse sneakers, a cute, casual look we were both proud of. My makeup was subtle and clean, and I had tied the blonde wig back into a loose ponytail. We were just chatting, laughing about a stupid meme she'd seen, when she propped her phone up to record a quick get-ready with me-style video, narrating her choice of outfit for the day. I was in the background, sitting on her bed, partially out of frame. I didn't think anything of it. She filmed these little snippets all the time. She finished her recording, posted it without much thought. And we moved on, deciding to try to get my eyeliner wings perfectly even for once. An hour later, her phone started buzzing incessantly. Weird, she said, picking it up. This video is getting way more comments than usual. She scrolled through them, her eyes widening. Oh no. What is it? I asked, a familiar spike of anxiety shooting through me. They saw you, she whispered, turning the phone to me. The comment section was a chaotic frenzy, but it wasn't about Emily's outfit. It was about the blurry figure in the background. And wait, who is that in the back? Bang, is that the girl from the transformation video? Omjita's look at the hair. And she's so pretty we need a full reveal. Naital, they're hanging out. Are they friends, sisters? I need to know. My first reaction was the old, familiar terror. I had been seen. The secret was out. But as I read more and more of the comments, something else took over. There was no mockery, no suspicion. There was only excitement and adoration. They recognized her. She had an identity, a fan base. They weren't calling for Jake to be exposed. They were begging for her to step into the spotlight. Emily looked at me, her expression worried. I'm so sorry, Jake. I'll delete it right now. She moved her thumb toward the delete button, but I stopped her. Wait, I said, my voice quiet but firm. I took the phone from her hands and looked at the video again. I watched the tiny, out-of-focus version of me sitting on the bed, laughing. She looked happy. She looked real. And thousands of people were excited to see her. All the fear, all the shame that had been my constant companions for weeks, suddenly felt distant. They were still there, but their power was diminished. What I felt instead was a strange sense of affirmation. This hidden part of me, this girl I had created in secret, was being validated, accepted, and even celebrated by the outside world. I looked from the phone screen to my own reflection in Emily's vanity mirror. I saw the girl with the blonde ponytail and the navy dress. I saw her wide, questioning eyes, and for the first time, I didn't see a disguise. I didn't see a costume or a character. I saw me, a part of me, a real and essential part of me that I had been hiding, not just from the world, but from myself. A slow smile spread across my face. It was her smile, but it was mine, too. They were one and the same. Maybe this is also me, I said softly, the words feeling truer than anything I had ever said. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know if it meant I wanted to be a girl all the time, or just some of the time. I didn't have a label for it. No neat box to put myself in. All I knew was that the conflict that had been tearing me apart was beginning to resolve itself, not with a victory for one side over the other, but with a truce, an acceptance. The boy named Jake and the unnamed girl in the mirror weren't two separate, warring entities. They were both me. Emily watched me, a small, knowing smile on her own face. She reached out and took my hand, her grip warm and steady. "Whatever you choose, Jake," she said, her voice filled with a fierce loyalty that brought a lump to my throat. "You're beautiful." The panic was gone. In its place was a quiet, profound sense of clarity. The journey wasn't over, in fact. It felt like it was just beginning, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid of where the path was leading. That night, the house was quiet again. The excitement from the TikTok discovery had settled into a thoughtful calm. We didn't delete the video, we left it up, a silent acknowledgement of a door that had been pushed open a little wider. After Emily had gone to sleep, I found myself standing in her doorway, just as I had on that first night after the challenge. My gaze fell upon the lavender slip dress, which she had hung carefully on the back of her desk chair. It was the genesis of everything, the shimmering silk vessel that had carried me on this strange and unexpected voyage. I walked into the room and reached out, my fingers tracing the delicate strap, then brushing against the impossibly soft fabric. The first time I had looked at this dress, I had seen it as a threat, a symbol of humiliation. Later, it had become a source of shame and secret desire. Now, seeing it in the soft moonlight, I felt something entirely different. I felt gratitude. This simple piece of clothing had been a catalyst, forcing me to confront a part of myself I had been taught to ignore, to suppress, to fear. It had held up a mirror, and in it, I had seen a stranger who slowly, miraculously, became a friend, and then, finally, a part of myself. My reflection was faintly visible in the dark glass of her window. I wasn't wearing the wig or the makeup. I was just Jake, in an old t-shirt and pajama pants. But I didn't see the same person I would have seen a few weeks ago. My shoulders didn't seem so slumped. My eyes held a new kind of light, a quiet confidence that hadn't been there before. The rigid lines of masculinity I had always tried to project had softened, making way for something more fluid, more authentic. I thought about the future. I didn't know what would happen at school, or with my friends, or my parents. The path ahead was still shrouded in fog, full of uncertainty and potential pain. There were no easy answers. I wasn't suddenly a girl. I was still Jake. But I was also her. I was both. I was something more. A small smile touched my lips as I looked at the dress. The journey it had started was far from over, but the terror of the unknown had been replaced by a quiet sense of anticipation, a feeling of excitement for the discoveries yet to come. I was no longer just a boy who had worn a dress for a dare. I was someone who was learning to embrace all the pieces of himself, no matter how contradictory they seemed. I turned to leave the room, casting one last look at the shimmer of lavender silk. The words formed in my mind, a soft, certain whisper, not just for TikTok anymore. And as I walked back to my own room, I felt a sense of peace settle over me, deep and true. I didn't have to choose, I just had to be. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I was finally learning how.